What's up, collective fam? It's your boy Tony the Toy Rat, and today we are talking Emma Grace Frost. Bursting onto the scene in 1980 in X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men number 129, she has been a staple of part of the mutant and X-Men universe ever since. Let's stop talking about it and crack her open. Let's go! Alright, collective fam, we have returned, and we're getting ready to open up the box for the first time of the Emma Frost statue by our friends at Diamond Select Toys. Guys, you can always pick these up at Diamond Select Toys or Amazon or wherever they sell Diamond Select Toys as part of their distribution. But I've been excited to crack this one open because we need more mutants in our in our setups back here. We need the X-Men to start emerging more in this universe, so I was happy to get Emma Frost, who, by the way, is not an X-Men. We're not going to call her an X-Men. I'm going to slide that out through here. I'm going to note right off the back, it's taller than normal. You get your little pamphlet in the back. This one got a little bit crushed up, but you get one of these in the back. Guys, remember, if you do get these, remember to fill them out and send them back to the company. It helps them to understand whether they're doing it right, wrong, or not at all. You can see that the box, other than being a giant synopsis on the back here, doesn't really do much for you guys who are box keepers. And you know, as far as the cardboard stuff is concerned, I am not a box keeper. And you know what that means. Be kind to the world. Recycle. Excellent. Now that we've done that, we'll take our handy down little scalpel tool and we'll get rid of the little tape on the sides here. Here we go. Snappy tap, a snappy snap. Very simple. 1, 2, 3, slide it open. And out will come our statue. And goodbye goes the plastic. And where does the plastic need to go, everybody? That's right. Recycle. In any case, let's take a first look at Emma Grace Frost. Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. All right. I've given it the quick once over, as you know I am prone to doing. Now I'm going to set her down on our turntable and give you guys what you deserve, which is the full body spin. Afterward, I'll have a few things to say about her, and you guys can determine for yourselves whether this is something you want to have in your, setup of statues or not. Fresh plastic smell. Let's go. This is Emma Frost. Full body spin time. Let's go.
Previously on X-Men.
Okay, everybody, you got the full body spin. You can see I already put on the old man glasses. I'm going to take those off for just a second while we do the basic housekeeping elements. So, taking out the tape measure right now, I'm going from the base into the tip of her fingers. You can see, what is that number hitting, everybody? It looks like 13 inches. Plus or minus 13 inches right there. You can see that. Obviously, you want to give it a little height above that, so 14 plus inches in height. Obviously, she's holding her hand up like so that increases the overall height of the statue, plus she's standing on a sentinel hand, and we'll get into that in just a second. All right, width-wise, what are we looking at here? I'm going from the furthest points out, guys, so that is edge to edge on her cape in the background, around back here. And I'm getting whatever this number is right here. 9 inches. Looks like 9 inches. All told, 9 inches. So you got 9 inches and 14 inches. And then, of course, the depth right here, we don't have very much. But at minimum, we're going to say that's a 7-incher. So she does take up some definite realty in your collection. Just keep all that real. So, what are we looking at? Emma Frost, guys. Emma Grace Frost, to be exact. born in Boston, Massachusetts. So I always picture her with that sort of Massachusetts park the car sort of accent. maybe I'm just thinking too much into it. She has high telepathic abilities, and her mutant ability really is to be able to transform her body into a diamond-like substance, which is nearly impenetrable and malleable for her to continue moving around as she is in that state. Those are her two main things, but she's a very high-level telepath, to say the very least about her. I said in the beginning that she's not really an X-Men. Yes, she joins the X-Men later on, but she was known as the White Queen of the Hellfire Club first. So she's got sort of a story background. I'm really curious for the MCU to understand where they're going to pull her into this mix and how she's going to fit in the wider universe. But let's save that for when the movie comes out, whenever that happens. Okay, in the meantime, we like to look at this against everything that we know from the comics, right? So she's been stylized beautifully. I mean, obviously she's got a beautiful female form. She's a little dramatic in this particular pose for me. That's woo kind of look at me stance that she has had adopted for the statue, and it's more interesting is because she is on top of what would be a sentinel hand. So I'm gonna show that here. You guys take a look at that. This is the base that she's standing on, and that is definitely a piece of a sentinel's hand back through here, right? So cool, and you can see some of the coiling of the mechanisms that operate the hands on the sides of the statue here. So that's really cool. I normally would say, what do we look at first, guys? The portrait, right? But this is an extremely difficult portrait for us to actually have to gauge. Maybe that was done intelligently so they wouldn't have to pattern her after any specific actress. But to say that, you can see her features, you surely can. Without a doubt, it's there. It's not like her face is a mush. It isn't. But I want you to take a really hard look at this alongside me if you can, because even though you can make out her facial features and you can know she's probably a bombshell, in this format it's so difficult to tell anything because they glazed over her face with the icicle glitter format thing. So you get more sort of light silhouette shapes. It's like you're staring at it dead on right now, and still I bet you're finding it slightly difficult to see the features of the face. And that to me is like, well, portrait is a huge deal. Now, why is portrait a huge deal? For me anyway, portrait is a huge deal because I find that is the defining element for whatever the character is that you're trying to put in front of me. All right? That's one of the defining elements. Does it look like what you remember from the comic books? Okay, I guess you can switch that around. You have some creative license, sure. But ultimately, you're selling this to collectors who are moving based on nostalgia. So if I am not nostalgic about the piece, I'm probably not going to want to buy it. That's just keeping it real. All right. All things being equal, though, the portrait, as defining as it is, to be able to determine the character, this particular character has, as we've identified, another really identifying characteristic, which is her ability to turn herself into this diamond glazed version of herself, so she's ultra protected. And that is how you would know, looking at her, that she is Emma Frost. All right? So if you know anything about the comic books at all, if you've ever seen it before, you've ever seen her in this state, you would understand that this was Emma Frost. For the other people who are not collectors here, you would probably have to get some backstory as to what the hell is going on, because there is a lot of stuff happening in this particular statue. So On the portrait, I'm someone's gonna get mad at me for this, but on portrait, I'm just saying it's so difficult to discern. I'm only gonna give this a 1.5 cheese. Ooh, that's not great, but that's only because it's so difficult for me to really discern anything, feature wise without looking like super hard at it. Maybe that was intended, but now costuming, which is usually the second thing that we want to look at to determine whether or not this looks like the character of the comic books that we have grown accustomed to. Absolutely. She is dripping in white, which she typically is. She's got this sort of halter top thing that also connects to the top layer here of the cape through a brooch that's centered in the middle. And on this one, she's got the X. So we know what that's about. She's got an X buckle. She's got an X, I guess that's a brooch that holds the cape over the top. I don't know what it's called. I don't have one. I would like one, though. I should get one. You're right. In any case, I would say a costuming absolutely is another really great reason to understand this is Emma Frost. She's pretty typically all decked out in white. So, because she has the glittery glazed diamond skin, and because she's rocking the cape, and because she's in all white, she can get 3 cheeses on the costuming, right? Where we only gave a 1.5 cheese on the portrait, because I'm being stingy today. All right, let's go to dynamic pose real quick. Well, this is clearly a museum pose. I mean, I don't care what you just won. The answer isn't this. I don't even know if you were going to take a picture, if you're going to stop and take a picture, what pose would you call this? I'm in charge of the world. I don't even know. I don't know. It's a bit over the top. It's super flashy. I like it for those reasons. It's over the top and it's super flashy. I don't think you're going to find a lot of other X-Men, at least Diamond Select toys, statues, that have this sort of pose generated here. And this is one of those times where I want to stop and ask the question to the sculptor and go, what drove this? And it's probably going to be something out of one of the books that I am not paying attention to. Likely that was a reference material they used for it. But the fact that they used that one bit of reference material in this segment to create a statue that will live forever in that pose is an interesting, choice to make. So I'm curious to know about that. I really want to try and find out about that. I'm being serious about it. All right. So in terms of dynamic pose, I guess you would have to refer to this as being dynamic. Not only is she doing this sort of ultra modern, take a picture of me for Vogue magazine pose that she's on, but she's also rocking the white high heels that are digging into the sentinel palm. So, the sentinel palm is this whole section that she's sitting on, or she's standing on, here in this area. And I think because of the virtue of the fact that she's standing on it is the implication that there was just some sort of battle. And this is her triumphant pose after winning a battle against the Sentinel here. Okay? Like I said, man, it doesn't all have to make sense. It just needs to look good. All right, so on dynamic pose, my goodness, it is hurting me to say this, but it is fairly dynamic. So we're going to have to say 3 cheese. Although strange, I'm going to go with, yes, still dynamic. So 3 cheese on the costuming, 3 cheese on the dynamic pose, a 1.5 cheese on the portrait, and I've already explained myself as to why. You guys have got the height, and you've got the width and the depth. In terms of the weight, it's weighted at just maybe over a pound. It doesn't wiggle or wobble unless you're forcing it to. I mean, I have it on this Lazy Susan right now, so I can do that. But if you just lay it on a flat surface, it's not going to wiggle or wobble in any kind of direction. So that's really cool. I do love the detail of the base, which would be the last thing that we need to look at here. The diorama portion of the diorama. So, yeah, we have a sentinel hand, and the sentinel hand is obviously what she's standing on. We've mentioned that a few times. I'm going to put on my glasses because there's some detail here I want to make sure I take note of. It appears to be a giant screw here on the top of if you guys can see this dealio here. A lot of detail went into that. I also appreciate that this piece of mechanical hand does look like it's battle worn. So there is some scars and scrapes along the edges up here that would only have to happen through some sort of attempted puncture or laser blast or something in that order of magnitude. I would have loved if this thing would have been like heavy weighted at the base, but it's weighted nice enough that I don't think it's going to be a problem. There's obvious hinge points here. I'm going to turn that around so you guys can see the bottom of the base. She stands right up here, and you can see where the hinge point is on that up inside this space in here. But otherwise, this is a hollow space. There is a little bit of movement in the cape. I'm going to see if you guys can see that. Okay? Can you see that when I flex this? So the cape has a little bit of movement. I'm wanting to say that's cool. I'm not like concerned, but I don't know why. I guess that would have been a separate piece they would have had to put on afterward, and that maybe is why it's a little looser, because it wouldn't have molded out this way. Of course, I don't know that for sure. I really would like to find that out. In any case, this has been my review of Emma Frost. You guys, you'll probably see more about her in the MCU as it's coming up. She's already been played by, I think, 3 different actresses right now in the various movies and shows that she's been depicted in. So because she's a high-level telepath and the mutants are coming, I fully expect we're going to see another rendition of Emma Frost. But until then, if you want to have a nice representation of her in your statue collection, well, look no further. Ta-da! Bang for the buck. I like the statue. I'm not entirely sure what number this is. I'm going to throw that up on screens, up here, somewhere where you guys can see on screen. And you guys can determine whether or not that cost is worth heading into your collection. Remember, you got to give a little bit of extra space because she sits taller than some of these other statues. Beyond that, I like what I got from her. And she's never been a character that I've been like super in love with. So, but to have like the offshoot characters that could mean a lot in the future, and I'm talking about from a cinematic standpoint, I think this is going to be one that you're going to understand later on. Has a lot of implications with relationship-driven stuff, with moving back and forth between, let's say, the good and the bad of the mutant class organization and all kinds of stuff like that. If you don't know too much about it, I would encourage you starting back at the beginning and getting some of the origins of Emma Frost. Until then, this is your boy, Tony the Toy Rat, for Diamond Select Toys, for the X-Men, for our girl, Emma Frost, and I am out. Go get you one.